After 12 heart-pounding races of the 1-Up Turbo Truck Series in 2023, it all comes down to this one last race to try and make your bid for a championship here at the Lady in Black. We're here at Darlington Raceway for race number 13 in the final race of the regular season for the 1-Up Turbo Truck Series this season, and we've got a lot of drivers looking to jostle their way into the playoffs. We've got 6 spots up for grabs, but realistically, our focus is going to be on that last one because there's 5 guys out on the outside looking in, all looking to challenge for their first shot at a series championship. And alongside me to break it all down for you tonight is the defending Turbo Truck Series race winner, the defending Turbo Truck Series champion, and the defending winner of this race last year, all in one person. It's Ryan Griffin once again. So, you know more than anyone else. You know more than anyone else what it's like, what you need to do to get around this place. So, how is it that you get around this place to win this race today?
You have to be, it's all about being careful, man. When it comes to this racetrack, hitting the wall is pretty much, it's so common that they actually have a nickname given to it. It is called the Darlington Stripe. So here, hitting the wall is not a worry here. You can hit the wall here gently and keep moving on. But the trick is, you want to run along there and you don't want to slam the wall. You just want to brush it. Just kind of if it were on a date on a Saturday night, you just want to just ease it nice and easy. But yes, you got to take your time here. Race the racetrack is what's said here, as opposed to racing your competition. That doesn't mean the competition isn't going to try to race each other, but you want to race the racetrack, be smooth, be consistent, and at the end of the night, you may be the one holding the trophy and locking your spot into the playoffs.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of drivers looking to accomplish both those things tonight. As we can look now at the starting lineup for today's 56-lap race at the track Too Tough to Tame, Earl Sear gets pole position for this race. Alongside him, Miles Mashburn making his first truck start of the season for Crossroads Racing. He lines up second. Angel Gutierrez, after that very strong performance at Watkins Glen, he lines up third. And next to him, Nick Breeding. He's looking to make the playoffs for the very first time. And he's one of those 5 guys who's looking to lock himself in tonight. He's the highest qualified of those 5, and he's in a very good position to make that happen. Also up for grabs is the regular season points championship. Brandon Smith has a huge lead in that, and he needs to keep a solid race together if he's going to make that happen. However, he starts this race back in 23rd. That's a lot of positions to make up. However, if there's one guy who's good at making his way from the back to the front, it's usually Brandon Smith.
Yeah, and especially at this racetrack, which starting in the back, I think, is a little more of a penalty here just because of how narrow the racing surface is here. But if there's anybody that could possibly charge his way up from 23rd on the grid, it would be our current regular season point leader trying to lock up the regular season title. And, as we've seen with Brandon Smith this year, he's been very consistent. So I could very easily see him making his way through here, even though it's going to be tough and you don't want to tear your stuff up trying to get through here.
It's certainly going to be a challenge for all 39 of our drivers here today. So with that being said, all 39 of them are lined up on the grid. We are ready to bring you the regular season finale for the 1-Up Turbo Truck Series at Darlington Raceway for 2023. Getting ready for the green flag, which is now mere moments away from falling on this hungry field of drivers. Field makes their way out of turn 4. Earl Sear and Miles Mashburn on the front row, getting set to take us into the restart zone. The green flag's in the air, and for one last time in the regular season, we are underway. Look pretty even for the first few rows, but as soon as they get it off into the first corner, looks like Earl Sear is going to have the advantage on that shorter line.
Yeah, Sear going to get the jump off the start, which here at Darlington, you want to try to be, at least on these restarts, you want to be on the inside of Sear. Going to pull ahead as they're side by side between the 72 and I believe 31 as they'll come off turn 4 here, come down to the start finish line. It looks like Sear will lead the first lap, although Gutierrez trying to fight back on that inside. He might get the lead here into turn 1.
This is a big dilemma for Miles Mashburn, I'm sure. He's his first time driving a racing machine owned by someone else, and now he's getting passed by one of his star up-and-coming drivers in Angel Gutierrez. But as we go off in the turn 3 to complete lap number 2, Earl Sear holds the lead with Gutierrez second. Mashburn still holding on the third, but here comes Nick Breeding in that 47. This is a pivotal race for his career. If he doesn't have a ride for next year, and if he can race his way into the playoffs, that'll raise his stock in a big way.
That would be big for Breeding as he does take over the third position, and Mashburn has, just like that, fallen from second to fourth. And it's a trend I've kind of seen here at Darlington, where if it's the outside, and if you start on the outside, it's kind of hard to maintain your position from the outside. But as we see the front three as they come through the corner are single file, back to fourth now is single file, as we come to complete lap 3 with the 3 truck out front.
Earl Sear continues to lead, but looking further back, Nelson Reeves in the 71. He needs as many points as he can to knock his teammate off the regular season title fight. But he's got a lot of ground to make up, because here comes Duke Ansack round the outside, move himself up into 6th. This is Ansack's final race of the season in the Truck Series. He's looking for a new driver for this 83, and he's proving that it's a very good ride by keeping it in the top 6. As we look a little further back, and here comes Nick Breeding on the charge looking for second.
Breeding obviously knows what the situation ahead of him, and he knows what he's got to do. And as a driver, it's pretty neat to go into a race and know exactly what has to be done. And pretty much he knows in his situation, just go out there and see if you can win the race. If you can win the race, you might be able to leap your way in. So just go out there and do what you got to do and take care of business as you can on your end. Don't worry about your competition. Make them have to get up there and get after you.
And right now, the highest running of his competition is, I believe, Mac Johnson, who's currently just inside the top 15. So Breeding's got a huge advantage now over the others in his fight. But in order to make himself really confident about his position, he really needs to get around that 72 of Gutierrez at least, and maybe even get a lap led under his belt. Because remember, that's a bonus point here. And if you can get at least one lap led here, it can do wonders for your season. As Gutierrez is going to try and take the lead right here, I think he got it by the slimmest of margins.
Yeah, Gutierrez has been probably one of the hottest guys in recent weeks, and definitely a very good prospective driver that's on the rise. And having raced against him last week, I mean, the last race for the Truck Series. This kid is got something in him, and it's going to be interesting to see how he develops over the course of this series. And obviously he's out front leading, as here comes Breeding for second, trying to take over the second position from Sear. And again, every position, every point matters for Breeding, and he is going to get that second position. Let's see if he can get after that 72 and maybe get a lap led here.
And this second place is vital for Breeding, because it's a 5-point difference between second and third. So Breeding, if he can get past this 3 truck, that'll put him in a very good position to make the playoffs, because remember, there's a spot up for grabs at the tail end of the field, and I'm sure Nick Breeding is looking forward to taking it. But there's still a lot of racing left to go in this race, just under 50 to go, and he does clear the 3 for second spot, move the 47 up to second place.
And now he'll see if he can run down that 72, but I've always said, really, it seems like as a driver, when you're in these situations, the points position, you're running for points, and the best way to kind of put that all at ease is to get up there and do kind of what Breeding is trying to do. You get up there, run up front, get to the lead, and then you don't really have to worry, the points will follow as they may. But at least from the lead, you kind of give yourself the best position to gain points.
Yep, and so far he's doing exactly what he needs to do. Have a career day for himself, and the points will follow soon after. Looking back now, this is the battle for 4th between Mashburn, Bronson Minnick, who's already locked in, and another driver who's already guaranteed himself a spot. Kev Shearer in the 02 started this race in 8th, and he just gained 2 spots in the span of 1 corner.
And Kev Shearer, who had kind of a rough outing last race, and drew the irk of one of his fellow competitors for how he was racing as a lap competitor. But Kev, of course, I said at the start of the year that I thought that he was going to be the championship favorite coming in, and it's like you want to have momentum going into those playoffs. So he's trying to get a decent run here and a good run here going into those playoffs, so he can prove that he was, as I said, the early championship favorite. But it's a fellow Toyota driver that's going to take the top spot as Breeding is around Mashburn for the lead, or around Gutierrez for the lead. Sorry, my bad.
And that is a pivotal point for Nick Breeding to get. No one can take that away from him now. He has led a lap in this race, and now he can afford to finish in third position if he has to. But I'm sure he'd love to get to win this race and make the playoffs in the most dramatic of possible ways. But I have a feeling this 02 car is going to challenge for the lead because Kev is just roaring around this track. He passed Sear and Gutierrez on that last lap.
Kev, honestly, maybe he heard me about the criticism. It seems like they haven't been as strong as they were at the start of the year, and he's like, fine, I'll show you how good I am. And he's sitting here in second now trying to run down the 47 up front.
Looking a little further back now, you saw Maston Rimmel in that 89 having a strong run in the 89. And here's Mac Johnson. He's running just outside the top 10, but that is not going to be enough at this point because Johnson needs to be running about where Nick Breeding is in the lead of this race, and Johnson's just not doing it at the moment. As now we've got a few battles for the position further up the field. Bronson Minnick and Earl Sear, that's the fight for fourth.
And honestly, Sear, I think, is the one that's kind of fallen off here, at least in these last couple of laps. I mean, he lost the lead to Breeding, and he's just kind of slipped a couple spots, and we'll see if he can kind of recover here maybe as the race goes on. But not something you want to look at, especially a guy that is going to be a playoff contender going into these playoffs. You want momentum going into these playoffs. You don't want to kind of stumble into the playoffs. You want to go in with at least some swagger, so to say. And right now, it appears that the Toyota seem to have the advantage here with Breeding leading and Kev running second. And we'll see if any more of them can come join the party at the front.
Yeah, right now the next highest Toyota is Nelson Reeves in seventh, and that makes 3 Kings Motorsports trucks in the top 3. In the top 7 with Bilson, Shearer, or Breeding, Shearer. That's the Bilson. It used to be the Bilson Racing 47. It's since been merged into Kings Motorsports with Breeding, Shearer, and Nelson Reeves. But as they run right now, it is Nick Breeding that continues to lead this race, although Kev Shearer is not too far away and he could close up.
Yeah, and Shearer again, was definitely a championship favorite coming into the season. Has, like I said, had a couple of rough races, a couple of good races, and I know he wants to kick off or end the regular season on a high note going into the playoffs. So he's definitely going to challenge Breeding. I'm sure he knows what's on the line for that truck in front of him, and he knows that truck is trying to make the playoffs. But at the same time, he's like, here he wants. Yeah, I was going to say, out here he knows he wants to win at the same time. So looks like he is going to go around Breeding here and take the lead as the 72 might try to pounce on this move that the 02 set up, but it looks like he's going to elect to stay behind at the moment as they go into turn 3.
So Kev Shearer takes the lead from his teammate Nick Breeding. This is the fight for the lead. Shearer has it. Breeding settles back in the second. And as they run right now, Nick Breeding would take the final spot by 7 points over Mac Johnson and Jensen Nomina. However, there's still a lot of racing to go. And if Breeding falls off a little bit, or if Johnson or Nomina can make their way up, we could be talking a whole other story here. But still plenty of racing to go, like I said, and Nick Breeding's doing everything he can at the moment to hold the lead. Right now, he needs a second or better with that bonus point to guarantee himself a spot.
Right now, he is going to be under challenge for second as the 72 Gutierrez looks to the inside. Wow, he really kind of had a check up going into 1 there, and it looks like he's going to lose actually third here to Sear. So move Sear to third, and Gutierrez back to 4th. As Bronson Minnick is now in the mix of this battle. He's closed in from 5th. Yeah, it's kind of a 5-truck kind of fight here at the front as the 31 of Mashburn is trying to see if he can close back to these guys, but as Kev Shearer leads.
Yep, and it looks like Mashburn's about a half second behind Bronson Minnick with Mashburn in the 31. it's a bit of a teething period for Miles Mashburn. This is his first race with Crossroads Racing, and I believe his first start with any other team that isn't his own. So I'm sure there's a bit of growing pains, but he'll sort them out, and he's running in the top 10, which I'm sure Crossroads Racing will greatly appreciate for that 31 truck. But here is Bronson Minnick running in 5th. He's guaranteed himself a spot in the championship hunt. Now he wants to make sure he enters the playoffs with some solid momentum.
Yeah, we use that word a lot, momentum. Basically what we're trying to say for the folks at home, it's you want to go into the playoffs with some good finishes and showing speed and consistency. You don't want to stumble your way, like, say, get into an accident and have a DNF on your resume of this last race of the regular season and go in kind of with your thumb up your butt, so to say, and not really be able to put your best foot forward as the playoffs kick off. And obviously, I speak from experience in the fact that last year I was able to win this race to kick off the truck playoff, and we may have had not we're dominant every race, but it definitely helped our momentum going into the playoffs to say, hey, we show these guys we're going to be a force to be reckoned with for the playoffs. And right now, if this 47 team and the O2, especially the O2 of Kev Shear, is showing that pace, he's showing that speed at the beginning of the year, he's showing that he's a caliber driver, that he can get up front, lead laps, and he's definitely going to be a force to reckon with in these playoffs. And even the 47 team with Breeding, even though they're still not in and trying to race their way in, the fact they showed up tonight with the situation they were in, and right now they're pretty much doing what they have to do, should be noteworthy for those that are going to be competitors in this year's playoffs.
Yep, and we've got a problem. It looks like Gentry Shoy in the 46 has parked it on pit road. They're reporting engine problems in that Toyota, and that's a shame because he has put on some great performances in the races he's managed to qualify for this year, but it looks like it'll be a DNF for the driver of the 46 machine. But back at the front of the field, you see Shoy still parked on pit road, and we look now at Gutierrez, who's trying to keep up with Earl Sear, and now focused in on the battle for 6 between Reeves, Mashburn, and Duke Ansack in the 83.
Yeah, a nice little battle going on here. Mashburn has seemed to has lost a couple of spots here, obviously, and trying to maintain those positions. And how about this guy, too? Nathan Orman had a great run last week, finished second. Last race out, had a great run, finished second. And there was a little controversy at the end of the last race out, because he kind of was very critical of how he had to deal with the lap truck, which at the time is our current race leader now in this race, Kev Shear. But good, decent run for that 6 team, and look for some bright things out of Orman next year. He's definitely a very good prospective driver that's looking for a ride next year. So he needs to start. He's been showing some decent runs, showing some decent speed, and I'm sure somebody's going to pick him up next year because he's too good of a prospect at that. And then I noticed Jeffrey Finn guy in the 22 was up into the top 10 as well, as we look on the 11 of Noah Hart here.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a great run going for Crossroads Racing as a whole. Mashburn's up in the top 10, Jacob Buchholz in the 10, and Noah Hart. They're both inside the top 15. And lurking back here is Brandon Smith. And if he finishes here or thereabouts, he'll be a regular season champion. At the end of the day, that's a bit of a squeeze by Noah Hart, but Smith does make his way past. So, Smith doing what he needs to do. Jensen Nomina lurking back here in 17th place. That's not going to be enough to stop Nick Breeding on a historic day for him. And Mac Johnson's fallen all the way back to 20th. That's really not going to help matters.
Yeah, I was almost going to touch on the 18 and say exactly what you said, that the points leader Smith had moved his way up there. But yeah, these are the guys right now. Nick Breeding, kind of in the catbird seat as far as trying to be the last guy in, and he's in the catbird seat right now. It's basically their position to lose at this point as long as he stays where he is, and really doesn't have anybody closing to him yet to challenge him for that second position. So just maintain where you're at as long as the pit crew can nail a a solid stop. They're in a good position and a good. They got a good vantage point right now.
How about the job Maston Rimmel just did? He passed Jeffrey Finguy for that 10th position. That's an impressive accomplishment for a young guy looking to get his footing. Oh, but he does get into the wall a little bit, and he rides it along in 1 and 2. That's going to cost him time. But that was still a good accomplishment for Maston Rimmel to pass a superstar legend like Jeffrey Finguy, albeit only for about a lap or two. Still good running, but now he's got Jacob Buchholz and Brian Grigsby to deal with.
Yeah, it's just battling all around this racetrack, but it also shows how narrow the line is here at Darlington. You get off that line just a little bit, you get into the wall, and you lose your momentum, and it seems like everybody wants to pounce on you, and you lose at least 3 or 4 spots when something like that goes wrong on you.
But it happens, it's part of racing, you move on and you pick it right back up again. And for Nick Breeding, he's got a lot of company back there. Earl Sear and Angel Gutierrez racing side by side for third. Looks like the 3's going to get him at the line. Let's see if it works going into turn 1 with the 47 directly ahead of them.
And the other thing that's kind of helps Breeding here where he's at is these guys racing each other behind him. If they get to racing each other behind him, he can kind of pull a little bit of a safety gap and just kind of keep riding in that second position.
Yep, and Breeding's doing a nice job. This is arguably the best race Nick Breeding has ever put on in one of these trucks. He's done a fantastic job. He led 8 laps earlier, running solidly in second. That's exactly what he needs to be doing. Don't force the issue on Kev Shearer if you don't think you can beat him, which so far I don't think he can. And right now, just hang in there. Because look at the gap Kev's pulled out. 1.7 seconds over second place Breeding. This is just a very impressive run for both those Kings Motorsports trucks.
Yeah, but it's like I said, it's like the organization as a whole is trying to prove, hey, we belong with all our trucks in the playoffs, and we're going to show you why we belong there. And they're definitely showing up tonight here in Darlington.
Yeah, I feel like they gave their best stuff to this 47 truck, trying to get him in with his teammates, because we all know Brendan Smith, Kev Shearer, Nelson Rees, we know they're all going to the playoffs already. But for Nick Breeding, it's still an uncertainty. So putting on as good a drive as he's doing right now, that can only do wonders for his season. But looking further back now, we see Minnick doing whatever he can to get past Gutierrez. It looks like he pulls down, but Gutierrez pulls a block on him going into turn 1 as we close in on 20 to go.
Yeah, the race is actually going by pretty quick here. I mean, we're clicking away lap times, and that window continues to close. So these guys that you need to get up on the wheel, Mac Johnson and Jensen Nomina, it's like they got to start going now, because you don't have a lot of time left now. With Breeding sitting up there running second, he's basically got no pressure on him right now, and it's almost as if he's on cruise control at this point.
So far, anyway, because Earl Sear is quite a ways back from the 47, and that's really the only guy who I think can challenge him at the moment. Because Gutierrez and Minnick, and throw in Nelson Reeves too, they're all focused on fighting each other for 4th. So Earl Sear, you can see he already has tracked down Nick Breeding for his 2nd position. So if Sear can pass Breeding here, that would put Breeding in a precarious position, because if Nomina or Johnson make their way up into, I believe, the top 12, it'd be really close, because Breeding has that bonus point under his belt for leading those 8 laps earlier. It's just going to be really close. So 2nd place is a certainty. 3rd on back's a big question mark.
Yeah, and the other thing that's you kind of touched on it when you said is he's got that bonus point in his back pocket, which means, I mean, it doesn't mean you want to be losing position, but it definitely helps you in terms of what strategy you're going to take here, as far as how hard are you willing to race somebody at this point for the position.
And right now, Kev Shearer's got a quite big lead. It's up to 2.5 seconds. We're closing in on the end of this race. We're almost at 15 to go now. So Kev Shearer doing what he needs to do by dominating the late stages of this race. He'll likely be your winner if everything goes the way it's been going. But Nick Breeding is fighting the race of his life right now. He needs these laps to be absolutely clean, absolutely perfect, to hold off this 3 and the 91 for good measure to try and keep this position.
And again, it's key as we see here on screen. The fight has tightened up for the second position as Nelson Reeves has latched himself onto the back of this group. So we got another truck into the fight, which means more trucks, more battles for position. As here comes the 91 to the inside of Sear, looking as they come to turn 1. Not quite going to have a look on. Looks like Sear's going to hold him off.
And that's going to give Sear a great run down the back straightaway to close in on Breeding. So Bronson Minnick diving it off into turn 1 on the 3 allowed him to get a wider line through 1 and 2, and he's going to try it again here in 3 and 4. I think the inside line's more preferable in 3 and 4 because it's a tighter radius corner, but in turns 1 and 2, that sweeping arc, you really want to be right up against the wall there.
Yeah, as we see Breeding here still hanging on to the run-up position as Kev Shear has stretched his lead to over 3 seconds now. As we are rapidly approaching, it won't be long before we reach it. It'll be 14 to go this time. The time is running out for those competitors that are trying to get at Breeding. And Breeding, if he maintains where he's at, it's pretty much in his control.
And remember, Breeding's trying to put all 4 of the King's Motorsports trucks into the playoffs. One of his main competitors, Jensen Nomina, he's trying to put all 4 New England Cruisers trucks into the playoffs. One of them will succeed in their mission, one will not. And as they run right now, it looks as though it's going to go the way of King's Motorsports and Toyota. But there's still 13, 14 laps to go in this race. Still a lot of time for something big to happen.
Yeah, and especially with it being Darlington. Darlington is a track, again, we mentioned about how you hit the wall here and scrape the wall here. We've seen incidents caused by, over hitting that wall and taking harder hits into it. So, and Breeding looks like he's going to give it the spot here to Sear as Gutierrez is going to try to take advantage of the hole that's opened up.
Yeah, this is not where Nick Breeding wants to be, and you can see Gentry Shaw never did get back on track. He was out of the race. But for Nick Breeding, this is a very dangerous position. He does not want to finish 3rd. He wants to get at least 2nd, because if he can stay in that 2nd spot, he knows he'll be racing for a championship. Anywhere less than that, and that's a big question mark, because it's like I said earlier, it's a 5-point gap between 2nd and 3rd, and those 5 points could be the difference as Minnick gets into the wall through 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's a good thing nobody ran him over, but the 91 sliding along the fence in 1 and 2, and textbook Darlington stripe. The only difference is this one's going to hurt him, and man, it sucks for Minnick, especially running top 5. Not going to say if he had a really chance at the win or not, but to be running top 5, running with the people that were leading the race, it's unfortunate to see one little mistake and may cost him that.
Yep, and notice who's made their way just outside the top 10. Brandon Smith in that 18 machine. He's just slowly making his way to the front. I fully expect him to get to the top 10 by the end of this race. Great drive from the back to the front by that 18 truck.
Yeah, 18, they've been dominant, consistent, strategic. And it looks like they're going to do it again, possibly.
And we now have 10 laps to go from Darlington, and Kev Shearer's gap, 4.3 seconds. If that's not also enough, I don't know what is. He's got the length of the back straightaway between himself and this battle between Nick Breeding and Earl Sear. This is a very important battle for everybody involved, because as they run right now, Earl Sear, he's going to be safely in the playoffs. Angel Gutierrez will get that 72 into the owners' playoffs, as will Duke Gansack for the 83. They'll race for an owners' title. But for Nick Breeding, that driver's championship is hanging in the balance. If he can finish 2nd, it's going to be his.
And he's going to race hard for it, because this is a chance at a possible championship for Breeding. And that would be a great way to go into next season and throughout your careers, to be able to say, hey, I raced him hard, I raced him clean, but I raced him. I didn't just putz around and not go after him. I went to get up after it. As it looks like the fight is on now for basically 3rd position. As look at the 83 in the recent charge out of this 83 has put him into the top 5, and he wants more.
Yeah, he's pushing along his teammate in the 3, but I think he wants to get by. I think the 83 is just a little bit faster at the moment, but that 83 is not racing for a driver's championship anymore. So if he might just be hanging back a little bit, give the 3 more of a cushion to make the driver's championship, but that 83, he is safely into the owner's championship as they run right now. We've come down to the final 7 laps. It's been the Kev Shearer show ever since he took the lead from Nick Breeding in about lap 20, and he's done a fantastic job leading ever since. But now Gutierrez is taking up the mantle of trying to pass Nick Breeding for second, and here he comes up to the high side, coming to the closing stages of this race.
5 laps to go in this race. Kev Shearer pretty much with the race on lockdown, but the battle is right here. It's the 72 of Gutierrez trying to get around the 47 of Breeding, and Breeding trying to hang on to that second place position because he knows if he stays there, he'll get the race for a championship.
And there's a big difference between winning a championship and getting and then having a maximum points position of 11th by missing the championship hunt. But notice Gutierrez has fallen off the 47 quite a bit. Now we have 5 laps to go. Is there enough time for the 72 to catch back up?
Honestly, I think the 72 may have his hands full because we got kind of a pack of trucks that's kind of closing back up together here. You mentioned Sear, the 83, now the 31 of Mashburn's back in here, as is the 6 of Warman, the 71 of Reeves, and the 22 of Finn Guy.
Yeah, Reeves has kind of fallen off a little bit, actually. He was challenging for a spot in the top 5. Now he's not. And now it's a battle for whatever remaining positions are left, because we now have 4 laps to go. Can Gutierrez make it to the end? He's got Breeding in his sights, and he alone can deny this 47 car a shot at a championship.
Yeah, it looks like it will be a 2-man race as Orman goes around the 31 and gain another position. Another decent top 10 showing for that 6 bunch. Possible top 5. As Kev Shearer will come to 3 to go here. 3 more laps around Darlington, and so far Breeding holds off the 72.
Yeah, the lead, though, is growing to 5.5 seconds between Shearer and these two. I don't think they're worried about Kev Shearer. They've pretty much conceded the race to him. The race they're in right now is this race for second. And if Breeding can hold on, this will be a much celebrated day for Kings Motorsports to get all 4 of their trucks in.
Yeah, not just a celebrated day for the drivers, but for the owners. But this 72 is not giving up on this battle for second. It continues as we come to 2 to go.
2 more times around, and now Gutierrez is to the inside of the 47. I don't think he's going to make a move. He was going to try and make a move, but the 47 had the preferred line. Through 1 and 2, this also allows Earl Sear to swoop around the 72 of Gutierrez. So now, Earl Sear takes up the baton, trying to take over the second position. We're coming to the white flag this time, and we still don't know who's going to be in the playoffs.
As we take the white flag, Kev Shearer 1 lap away from victory here. And Nick Breeding 1 lap away from making the playoffs.
So can
he hold on?
Yeah, coming through 1 and 2 for the final time. Kev Shearer hasn't put a foot wrong today. He had a bit of a rough outing last time out in Boston. He's put that to rest, and he is going to dominate this race en route to another win for this 0-2 group. So coming through 3 and 4 for the final time. Kev Shearer going to win the regular season finale and enter the playoffs in style with a big win at Darlington. But behind him, Nick Breeding's going to fend off the challenge. Earl Sear's going to make a last-ditch effort. It's not going to be enough. Breeding takes second place, and with it comes a shot at the championship. Nick Breeding races his way into the 10th and final playoff spot ahead of Earl Sear. Gutierrez 4th, Dugansack 5th. Nathan Orman puts that 6th truck in the Owners' Championship hunt with a 6th place finish. Miles Mashburn, a great run for him in his first truck start of the season. 7th, Finn Guy 8th. Brandon Smith, he locks up the regular season championship with yet another top 10. And Nelson Reeves completes the top 10. But boy, Nelson Reeves was your 10th place finisher at the end of this one. But for Nick Breeding, that is a fantastic drive, and for Kev Shearer as well to win the race, but the big drive of the day has to go to this 47. The best finish of his career, and now he's going to race for a championship as well.
Yeah, and you could say, okay, yeah, the second place run is a great run no matter what. It's more the fact that you're going to race for a championship. You could win a championship this year, and that's something that anybody could take. Anybody could say, "Oh, I'll take." No, a second place finish is good, but when you add that monocle, hey, you get to race for a championship. It definitely makes that second place finish even sweeter than a normal second place finish would.
Absolutely. So with that, the regular season is over. We have our 10 playoff drivers, and we will see you again in 2 weeks' time at the Bristol Motor Speedway to get the playoffs started. And these 10 drivers will have their work cut out for them with only 15 points separating all 10 of them. They'll be racing for a championship this time in 2 weeks. So from Ryan Griffin and from myself as well, we say goodbye from the Lady in Black. The track too tough to tame. Kev Shearer sure tamed it here today, leading so many laps. He have a 6.2 second margin of victory. But another driver who really tamed the beast here at Darlington, Nick Breeding, who put on the best drive of his career, he's going hunting for a championship in 2023.